It was a dark sky over Earth when the signal came. The message was short, cold, and full of fear. No one on Earth understood the alien language, but the feeling inside it was clear: something terrible was coming. Far from this planet, across the black emptiness of space, a soldier named Kale watched from the bridge of a ship that wasn't his home. He was not human. His skin was pale silver, and his eyes glowed faint blue under his helmet. Kale was a soldier of the Zarion Empire, one of the most feared alien forces in the galaxy. Yet at that moment, as he looked at the small blue planet called Earth, a strange feeling burned inside him. It was not pride. It was not victory. It was something else, something he had not felt for a very long time. Fear. Kale had seen hundreds of worlds fall. He had followed orders, fired weapons, destroyed cities, and silenced life. But this mission felt different. The command was simple: Earth must be silenced before it grows dangerous. He didn't understand why. From the data he saw, humans were still a young race, loud, emotional, unpredictable, but small in power. How could they be dangerous? As his ship moved closer, Kale remembered the faces of soldiers around him. Most of them were eager for the fight. They laughed, polished their plasma rifles, and talked about how short this war would be. 3 days, one said. No more. Kale stayed quiet. He had learned that wars never ended as planned. When the fleet entered Earth's orbit, Kale stood by the viewing screen. He saw lights below, cities glowing like tiny stars. He could almost imagine the people living there, unaware of what waited above them. His commander, General Trin, gave the order in a cold voice. Prepare the strike waves. Kale's hands trembled slightly. He told himself it was nothing, just routine. But deep inside, a memory began to wake, a nightmare he thought he had buried long ago. It was the memory of another planet, long before this war, when he had followed orders that destroyed everything he cared about. He had promised himself never again to feel that pain. Yet here he was, ready to repeat the same mistake. The alarm lights turned red. The invasion began. From orbit, thousands of ships opened fire. Bright beams of energy cut through the sky like angry gods. The first human cities vanished in fire and smoke. Kale watched, frozen. The screams from the human communication channels echoed through his headset, voices begging, crying, shouting names. He tried to close the channel, but his hand wouldn't move. Then something strange happened. A human signal broke through their military channel. It wasn't a cry for help, it was a message. A human voice spoke calmly. To those who attack us, we will not surrender. Remember this day, because you will too. Kale froze. The human voice sounded steady, strong, almost fearless. He didn't know how they managed to break into the channel, but something in that voice hit him like a blade. For a second, he forgot he was a soldier. He felt like a person again. Suddenly, the fleet was hit. Earth's defense systems, though primitive by alien standards, had found a way to fight back. Explosions lit the sky around Kale's ship. The deck shook violently. Sparks flew. He fell to the floor as alarms screamed. "Shields down to 60%, shouted one officer. "Return fire," General Trin ordered. Kale climbed back to his station, his heart pounding. He looked at the chaos outside, the ships burning, the blue planet shining below, the war beginning for real. And then he saw something impossible. One human fighter jet flying straight toward them through the fire. It shouldn't have been able to reach them. It was too small, too weak. Yet it came, weaving through explosions, like it was being guided by something beyond skill, by rage, by hope, by desperation. The fighter crashed into one of the fleet's cruisers. The explosion was massive, tearing through the formation. Kale's ship spun out of control. He grabbed the edge of the console as the lights went out. For a moment, there was only silence, then the sound of his own breathing. When he opened his eyes, he was lying in darkness. The ship had crashed. Emergency lights blinked red. The air smelled of smoke and burnt metal. He touched his helmet. It was cracked. Around him were the bodies of his crew. He was the only one alive. Kale tried to stand, but pain shot through his leg. He limped toward the airlock, forcing it open. Outside, he saw something that made his chest tighten. He was no longer in space. The ship had fallen onto the surface of Earth. The sky above him burned with streaks of fire. Alien and human ships clashed in the distance. The war had reached the ground. Kale looked around, breathing hard. He was the enemy now, trapped on the planet he came to destroy. Somewhere out there, humans were fighting for survival. And somewhere inside him, a strange thought began to grow. Maybe they deserve to win. The ground trembled with explosions. In the far distance, Kale heard the sound of footsteps, many of them. They were coming closer. He raised his weapon, unsure whether to fight or to run. That night, under the burning sky of Earth, the alien soldier took his first step into a nightmare he would never forget. Smoke rose from the wrecked ship like a dying star. Kale stood in the middle of the ruins, his body aching, his mind spinning. The ground was hot beneath his boots. He looked around and saw no sign of his crew, only broken metal and fire. The air smelled of dust and blood. Somewhere far away, the war still raged, but here, there was only silence. Kale's translator picked up faint human voices. They were close. He turned his head sharply, scanning the dark forest around the crash site. The voices grew louder. 5, maybe 6 humans, moving through the trees, armed. He could hear their boots crunching the ground. He hid behind a piece of the fallen ship, trying not to breathe too loud. His training told him to attack first. But something inside him hesitated. He had come here to destroy humans, yet now, for the first time, he was afraid of them. Not because they were strong, but because they were alive, fighting, refusing to die. The voices stopped. A flashlight beam cut through the smoke. "There's movement," someone shouted. Kale turned and fired his plasma pistol instinctively. The blast hit a tree, sending fire across the ground. The humans scattered. One of them shouted, "He's over there." Kale ran. His leg hurt, but adrenaline pushed him forward. He crashed through the forest, his armor heavy, his breath fast. Behind him, bullets cut through the air. Humans were chasing him now, real soldiers, not frightened civilians. He reached a small clearing and stopped. The forest opened to reveal a broken human vehicle, something like a jeep, half buried in mud. A body lay beside it, still holding a rifle. Kale looked at the weapon. It was crude compared to his, but deadly enough. He picked it up and turned the safety off. The sound of footsteps came again. He raised the gun, ready. But when the first human appeared through the smoke, Kale froze. It was a young woman, her uniform torn, her face covered in dirt and sweat. Her eyes met his. For a moment, time stopped. She didn't shoot. Neither did he. Her voice was calm but hard. "You're one of them." Kale didn't answer. His translator repeated her words in his ear, cold and robotic. He slowly lowered his weapon. "I don't want to fight," he said, his alien accent heavy. The woman frowned. "Then why are you here?" Kale looked at the sky. It was still burning. "Orders," he said quietly. "But now, I think my war is over." Before she could reply, another explosion shook the ground. A nearby ship crashed in flames, throwing debris through the air. The woman ducked, and Kale pulled her behind the broken jeep. The blast wave passed over them, leaving only silence again. When the dust settled, she looked at him differently. Her eyes were softer now, though still sharp. "If you're lying, I'll kill you," she said. Kale nodded. "That's fair." She didn't smile. "Name." "Kale." She hesitated, then said, "Sergeant Mira." For a while, they sat in silence, both breathing heavily. In the distance, the sound of war thundered like a storm. Kale looked at his cracked helmet. "Your people fight hard," he said. Mira gave a small, bitter laugh. "We fight because we have no choice. You came here to end us." Kale looked down at his hands. Maybe we were wrong. She didn't answer. Instead, she checked her weapon and stood. If you really don't want to fight, then help me. My squad is still out there. If I don't find them, they'll die. Kale hesitated. Helping her meant betraying his army. If his command found out, he would be executed. But looking into her eyes, he knew he couldn't go back anyway. His war with humanity had already ended the moment he saw Earth burn. I'll help, he said finally. They moved through the forest together, quietly and fast. Mira led the way, using her flashlight carefully. Kale walked behind, scanning the shadows. Every sound felt like danger. Every flash of light reminded him that this planet was fighting back with everything it had. After an hour of walking, they reached a destroyed human camp. The smell of smoke and death filled the air. Bodies lay scattered across the ground, both human and alien. Kale's stomach twisted when he saw the faces of his own kind among the dead. They were his brothers once, but now they looked like monsters. Mira knelt beside one of the human soldiers. "Corporal Dane," she whispered. Her voice broke slightly. He was gone. She closed his eyes gently. Kale stood behind her, feeling an ache in his chest. He wanted to say something, but no words came. Then a sound came from the wreckage, a groan. Mira ran toward it. Beneath a fallen metal plate, a human man was still alive, his leg trapped. Kale lifted the plate easily, his alien strength surprising her. Together, they pulled the man free. He looked up at Kale, terrified. "It's one of them," he gasped. Mira shook her head. "He's with us now." Kale looked away. He didn't know if that was true. But for the first time, he wanted it to be. As night fell, the three of them found shelter in the remains of a farmhouse. The sky outside still burned red. Mira tended to the wounded man while Kale watched from the doorway. In the distance, alien ships moved like shadows across the clouds. He knew they were hunting survivors, and him. Mira looked at him quietly. "They'll come for you, won't they?" Kale nodded. "Yes. And if they find me with you, they'll kill you too." She met his eyes. "Then we'd better move before morning." Kale looked out at the war-torn horizon, feeling the weight of his past pressing on his chest. For the first time in his life, he didn't know who the enemy was anymore. Outside, thunder rolled across the burning sky, and somewhere deep in the ruins of Earth, the real war was just beginning. The first light of dawn cut through the red smoke of the burning horizon. Kale stood outside the farmhouse, his eyes scanning the sky. Alien ships had disappeared with the night, but he knew they would return. Somewhere out there, his commanders were already aware of his betrayal. Inside, Mira and the wounded man slept fitfully. Kale tried not to think about the danger he had brought to them. He had chosen to protect humans, something no Zarion soldier had ever done, but now that choice could cost all their lives. His communicator beeped faintly in his armor. He froze. This was not his standard channel. It was secure, private. Only the highest command could reach him here. The screen flickered to life, showing a face he had hoped never to see again. General Trin. "Kale." The voice was cold, sharp, and full of anger. "You have disobeyed direct orders. You have endangered the mission. Explain yourself." Kale's throat tightened. He knew that no explanation would be accepted. The Zarion Empire did not forgive betrayal. He could hear the silent promise in Trin's voice. Failure would mean death. I cannot follow those orders anymore," Kale said quietly, his alien accent heavy. "This planet, these humans, they are not a threat. You are wrong." Trin's eyes narrowed. "Wrong? You call your disobedience right? You have aligned with the enemy. You are now a traitor. Your location will be marked. We are sending hunters. None will survive. Do you understand?" Kale's chest tightened. "I understand." "Good. Remember, Kale, loyalty is everything. Betrayal is not tolerated." The screen went dark. The silence that followed was heavier than any explosion Kale had ever heard. He turned to Mira and the wounded man. Mira looked at him, sensing something had changed. "Who was that?" "My commander," Kale said. "They know I'm here. Hunters will come. Soon." Mira's eyes widened. "Then we need to leave. Now." Kale nodded. He gathered what supplies they could carry, taking only the essentials. The forest was dense, full of shadows and danger, but it also offered cover. Kale led them carefully, moving silently among the trees. Every sound could be a warning: the snap of a branch, the rustle of leaves, even the wind seemed suspicious. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, and the shadows shifted. Kale had to keep moving. The Zarion hunters were not ordinary soldiers. They were elite, trained to find fugitives. And now Kale was the hunted, betrayed by the empire he had served his entire life. Suddenly, a scream echoed from the valley below. Kale froze. Mira grabbed his arm. What was that? Kale's mind raced. It was too human to be the hunters. It sounded like someone in pain, someone trying to survive. He knew the area. There were civilians hiding in the forests. Every human life here was fragile, and every scream was a warning. He gestured for Mira to stay low. Together, they crept down a narrow path, moving toward the sound. They found a family trapped under debris from a collapsed building. Without hesitation, Kale lifted a large beam with ease. Mira helped the children out, carrying them to safety. "This way," Kale whispered. "We need to move before the hunters arrive." As they continued, a shadow moved in the trees above. Kale instinctively reached for his weapon. A Zarion scout dropped silently, landing in front of them. Its armor was black, sleek, designed for hunting fugitives. Its eyes glowed red. Kale's heart sank. They had found him. The scout attacked with speed too fast for the eye. Kale fired his plasma rifle, the beam slicing through the air. The alien dodged easily, striking Kale with its staff and sending him sprawling. Mira fired her weapon, forcing the scout back. The wounded man tried to help, but he was too weak. Kale struggled to stand. Anger and fear pushed him forward. He grabbed a fallen branch, swinging it with precision. The scout blocked and countered, their fight echoing through the trees. Mira shouted, trying to keep the children safe. Finally, Kale saw an opening. With a burst of strength, he struck the scout in the chest, sending it crashing into the underbrush. Its body did not move. Kale didn't wait to see if it was alive. He grabbed Mira and the children, running as fast as he could. They stumbled through a narrow ravine, hearts pounding, lungs burning. Kale looked back once. The scout's red eyes disappeared into the distance, but he knew more would come. The hunters were relentless. The Empire would not stop until he was dead. Mira glanced at him, her face pale but determined. "We can't stay here. We need to find a safe place, somewhere no one can track us." Kale nodded. "I know a place. A ruin deep in the mountains. No one goes there. We can rest there, plan our next move." As they disappeared into the forest, Kale's mind raced. He had turned against his own people, chosen humanity over the empire he once served. There was no going back. Every step forward was dangerous, every choice deadly. Yet for the first time in his life, Kale felt alive, not as a soldier, but as something more. And somewhere above the burning horizon, the fleet moved silently. Hunters were on their way. The nightmare was far from over. The mountains rose like jagged teeth against the burning sky. Kale led Mira and the small group of survivors along narrow paths, moving carefully over loose rocks. Every step was dangerous, but the higher they climbed, the safer they felt from the alien hunters sweeping the lowlands. The wind was cold and sharp. Kale's armor, scratched and dented from the crash and fights, rattled with every step. Mira carried one of the children on her back, and Kale helped the wounded man along, his own strength carrying them further than any human could manage. After hours of climbing, they reached a hidden cave. It was well concealed behind a waterfall, the roaring water masking any sound from outside. Kale pushed aside the last rocks blocking the entrance. "This should be safe for now," he said. Inside, the cave was dark but dry. Stalactites hung from the ceiling, and a faint smell of earth and minerals filled the air. The survivors settled down, exhausted. Kale and Mira took turns keeping watch. The children huddled together, whispering softly. The wounded man groaned in pain, but Mira tended to his injuries as best she could. Kale wandered deeper into the cave, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. That's when he saw it. Strange shapes hidden in the shadows. Machines, long forgotten, covered in dust and vines. Some were small, like drones, others larger, like tanks or ships. They were alien, but not Zarion. He ran back to Mira, excitement and disbelief in his voice. "You need to see this," he said. She followed him, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. "What is it?" she asked. Kale shook his head. "I don't know. It's alien technology, but it's not from my fleet. Something older, more advanced." As they examined the machines, a figure stepped out of the shadows. Mira raised her weapon. Kale held up his hand. "Wait. They're not hostile." The figure moved closer. It was an alien, but unlike any Kale had ever seen. Its skin was pale gold, eyes large and glowing softly. It wore a simple uniform, without armor or weapons. Its voice was calm. "I have been waiting," it said in perfect galactic standard. "For centuries, this technology has waited for one like you." Kale's jaw tightened. "Who are you?" "I am Elora," the alien said. "I am a guardian of the lost technologies of the old worlds. The Zarion Empire destroyed most of it, but some of us survived. I have been watching you, Kale. You are not like the others. You have chosen to protect life instead of destroy it." Mira narrowed her eyes. "Why help us? You don't even know us." Elora smiled faintly. "Because humanity has potential. And you, Kale, may be the one to change the fate of this war. But time is short. The hunters are coming." Kale felt a surge of hope, but also doubt. "We don't have weapons. We barely survived this long." Elora waved a hand, and the dust-covered machines came to life. Lights blinked on, hums filled the cave, and the air seemed charged with energy. Kale watched, speechless, as small drones hovered and larger machines powered up. "These machines were built to defend, not to attack blindly," Elora explained. "I can teach you to use them. If you survive long enough, you may turn the tide against your own people." Mira stepped closer, studying the alien technology. "If this works, we could save lives, many lives. But can we trust him?" Kale looked at Elora, then back at Mira. "We don't have a choice. The hunters will find us soon. Either we use this, or we die." Elora nodded. "Time is short. I will teach you quickly. You have to learn to move, fight, and defend, together." For the next several hours, Elora trained them. Kale learned to control the drones with gestures, the way a conductor directs an orchestra. Mira learned to use the larger machines, piloting them like extensions of her own body. Even the wounded man, with Kale's help, learned to operate defensive weapons and shields. By the time the first stars appeared in the night sky, the cave was no longer just a hiding place, it was a fortress. The alien machines hummed quietly, waiting, ready for the next attack. Kale looked at Mira, then at the children. He realized that for the first time, he was no longer just a soldier or a fugitive. He was a protector. Then, from the entrance of the cave, a shadow moved. Kale froze. Mira raised her weapon. The shadow stepped closer, and Kale's stomach sank. It was a Zarion scout. Alone, but enough to know the hunters were coming. Elora stepped forward, calm as ever. "Now, Kale. Show them what you have learned. Protect this place, protect these people, or all will be lost." Kale's eyes narrowed. He took a deep breath, gripping his weapon. The hunters had found them, But this time, he was ready. The war had reached a new level, and Earth had a chance it had never had before. The first attack was about to begin. The night air was cold, sharp against Kale's skin. From the shadows at the edge of the cave, the first Zarion hunters appeared. Their black armor glinted under the pale moonlight. Kale could see the red glow of their eyes as they scanned the area. They were elite, fast, and ruthless. He turned to Mira and the survivors. "Get ready. Stay together. Follow Elira's instructions exactly." The children huddled behind a barricade of alien machines. Mira took her position at the control panel of one of the larger machines, her hands moving quickly over the controls. Kale activated the drones, sending them out in a circle around the cave. Their soft hums grew louder as they hovered, scanning the approaching hunters. The first shots rang out. Plasma beams cut the darkness, striking rocks and trees. Sparks flew as Kale's drones intercepted the blasts. Myra's machine roared to life, moving like a mechanical predator. She fired, hitting a hunter before he could reach the cave. Kale moved forward, firing his plasma rifle, covering the survivors as they retreated deeper into the cave. The hunters were relentless. They moved with precision, expecting Kale and his small group to panic. But Elira's technology gave them an edge. Shields rose, drones moved in protective patterns, and the larger machines defended the entrances. One hunter managed to reach the edge of the cave. Kale swung a mechanical arm from a drone, striking the alien with enough force to send him tumbling backward. Another hunter charged Myra's machine, but she dodged quickly, sending a blast that knocked him down. The humans were holding their ground, their fear replaced with determination. Despite their advantage, Kale knew the fight would not last long. The hunters were only the first wave. More would come. He glanced at the sky and saw the main fleet moving closer, dropping fast pods to search the mountains. Time was running out. Suddenly, a loud crash shook the cave. One of the larger drones had been hit. Sparks flew, and the machine shuddered before shutting down completely. Mira cursed under her breath. "We can't hold them forever." Kale gritted his teeth. "We won't." He pushed forward, leading a counterattack. Drones zipped around the hunters, cutting off escape routes. Kale fired relentlessly, taking down one hunter after another. He could hear their strange mechanical voices yelling orders to each other, but they sounded human to him now, like desperate animals trying to survive. In the middle of the chaos, Kale saw one of the children fall, frozen in fear. He lunged, scooping the child up, feeling the heat of battle all around him. Myra's machine shielded them, pushing the hunters back temporarily. But then the ground shook violently. A massive shadow appeared at the cave entrance, a Zarion commander, larger and stronger than any soldier Kale had faced before. Its armor was scarred, its weapon glowing with deadly energy. Kale's heart sank. This was not a scout. This was the elite hunter sent to finish him. Elira's voice echoed in his helmet. "Kale, focus. Use the machines, use the drones. Protect them at all costs." Kale took a deep breath. He moved the drones in a coordinated attack, surrounding the massive hunter. Mira fired her machine repeatedly, striking the alien's armor. Kale dodged blasts, using debris for cover. The hunter's strength was overwhelming, but the combined force of humans and alien technology began to push it back. Still, one mistake could end everything. The commander slammed into a drone, shattering it. Sparks flew. Another blast struck the cave wall, sending rocks falling dangerously close to the survivors. Kale could feel panic rising, but he forced it down. He had to remain calm. Then, Kale remembered a technique Elira had shown him earlier, how to combine the drone's energy with Myra's machine to create a focused blast. He shouted to her, and she nodded, understanding instantly. Together, they channeled the energy, aiming directly at the massive hunter. The beam struck with a blinding flash. The hunter screamed, a sound unlike anything Kale had ever heard, and was thrown back, crashing into the rocks outside the cave. Silence followed, broken only by the heavy breathing of the survivors. Kale lowered his weapon, sweat running down his face. Mira collapsed into a chair of the machine's cockpit, exhausted but alive. The children hugged each other, frightened but safe. The wounded man smiled weakly, his injuries making him tremble. Elora stepped forward, calm as ever. You did well, Kale. But this was only the beginning. The fleet will not stop until they have you, and the humans, dead. You must prepare for the next wave. Kale looked out at the night sky. The stars were still beautiful, but they were no longer comforting. They reminded him that the galaxy was vast, dangerous, and indifferent to life. He thought of Earth below, burning and fighting, and of his own choice to stand against his empire. We survived tonight, Kale said quietly. But tomorrow, it could be worse. Mira nodded. Then we fight again. Together. Kale clenched his fists. For the first time, he felt something deeper than fear or anger, hope. The hunters could come, the Empire could chase him, but as long as they had Elora's technology and their determination, they had a chance. Outside the cave, the shadows shifted. More hunters were on their way. Kale took a deep breath and readied his rifle. The first battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The first light of dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky with fire and gold. Kale stood at the edge of the cliff, looking down at the valley below. The main Zarion fleet was still in orbit, scanning, waiting. They were patient, relentless, and unaware that their own soldier, Kale, had turned against them. Mira and the surviving humans gathered behind him. The children and the wounded man were safe for now, but Kale knew they could not hide forever. Elora had brought them here for a reason. The machines in the cave hummed softly, waiting to be used. Elora appeared at his side. This technology, she said, her voice calm but urgent, was built not just for defense, but to amplify courage. Those who fight for life, not destruction, can use it to change the outcome of wars. Kale, you must lead. This is the moment. Kale swallowed hard. He had never imagined himself a hero, or a savior. Yet here he was, responsible not just for humans, but for the fate of Earth itself. What do we do? He asked. Elora pointed to a hidden facility deep in the mountains. There is a command center beneath the ruins. It houses the energy cores that can disrupt the fleet's communication and navigation. If you reach it, you can turn their technology against them. But the path is dangerous. Hunters will be waiting. Mira tightened her grip on her weapon. Then we move, she said simply. They descended into the dark tunnels beneath the mountains. The air was damp, heavy with minerals, and the faint hum of the machines guided them. Kale led the way, alert for traps and patrols. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound a threat. They reached a massive chamber filled with strange machinery, glowing cores, humming generators, and control panels covered in alien symbols. Elora moved quickly, showing Kale and Mira how to activate the systems. These cores can create a wave that scrambles the fleet's sensors. It will give you a chance to strike, to protect your people. But be careful, overload them, and it will destroy everything, including the planet. Kale nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down. He and Mira worked together, activating the cores. The hum grew louder, the air crackling with energy. Outside, they could see the first scouts of the Zarion fleet moving in, alerted by the activity. The first hunter stepped into the chamber, a massive armored figure, taller and stronger than any Kale had faced before. It raised its weapon, energy crackling at its fingertips. Kale fired, but the shots barely scratched the alien. Myra's machine roared, swinging heavy arms to strike. The hunter blocked and countered, throwing Kale back into the machinery. Sparks flew, and Kale felt the heat of the energy cores buzzing against his skin. Hold the line, Kale shouted, pulling himself up. He remembered Elora's words, fight not with anger, but with purpose. He guided the drones, using them to distract the hunter, while Mira and the humans activated the cores fully. A blinding pulse of energy exploded from the machines. The chamber shook violently. The hunter screamed, thrown back by the force. Outside, The fleet's communications went dark. Sensors failed. Confusion spread among the Zarion forces. For the first time, humans and Kale had the advantage. Kale and Mira raced to the exit, leading the survivors into the mountains. From above, they could see the chaos: ships colliding, energy beams missing targets, and hunters struggling to regroup. Earth's defenders, inspired by the sudden opportunity, began to fight back with courage they had never known. But as they celebrated the first victory, Kale noticed movement behind the shadows. A familiar figure emerged. It was a Zarion commander he thought defeated in the cave. Its armor was scorched, but its eyes burned with fury. Kale's heart sank. This hunter had survived, and it had a single purpose: to end him. "You cannot escape, Kale," the commander said, its voice like grinding metal. "You chose betrayal. You chose humans. You will die." Kale raised his weapon, standing tall despite the exhaustion. "No," he said. "I chose life. Something your empire never understood." The final battle began. Kale dodged blasts, moving with precision, guiding Mira and the drones. Together, they surrounded the hunter, forcing it toward the edge of a cliff. One wrong move, and it could all end. With a final push, Kale and Mira combined the drone's energy with the core systems, creating a focused beam of light and power. The hunter screamed, caught in the blast, before it tumbled over the cliff and disappeared into the abyss below. Silence fell. The valley was quiet except for the hum of Elara's machines and the wind through the mountains. Kale collapsed to his knees, exhausted, but alive. Mira rushed to his side, holding his arm. "You did it," she whispered. "We did it." Kale looked out over the valley. The fleet above had retreated, confused and weakened. Humans were alive. Earth was still burning, but hope remained. Elara approached, her golden eyes soft. "This is only the beginning. You have changed the path of this war, Kale. The Empire will return. But humanity now has a chance, because of your choice." Kale felt something he hadn't felt in years: peace. For the first time, he was not a soldier following orders. He was a protector, a friend, a warrior who chose life over destruction. The survivors gathered around him. Children hugged their mothers, the wounded smiled weakly, and Mira stood beside him, determined and strong. Kale looked at the sky, once red with fire, now streaked with the light of dawn. Earth had survived the night. And Kale knew, deep inside, that as long as humans had courage, and as long as he stood with them, the nightmare would not define their future. Somewhere in the distance, the fleet of the Zarion Empire would regroup, but Kale and humanity had gained something far more powerful than any weapon: hope, unity, and the will to fight. The war was not over. But Earth had its first victory. And Kale, once an alien soldier of destruction, had become a guardian of life. The mountain wind whispered through the ruins, carrying a promise. The story of this day, and the courage of those who fought, would not be forgotten. The wind howled through the mountains, carrying smoke from the distant battlefields. Kale stood on a rocky cliff, looking down at the valley below. The Zarion fleet had retreated, but he knew this was only temporary. They would return, stronger and angrier. Still, for the first time, Kale felt hope. Mira and the survivors gathered behind him. The children clung to her, frightened but alive. The wounded man leaned on Kale for support. All of them had survived impossible odds, and the alien technology Elara had given them now stood ready, humming quietly in the cave below. Elara approached, her golden eyes calm and unwavering. "Kale," she said, "the choice you made changed everything. You chose life, not destruction. The Empire may return, but humanity now has a chance." Kale looked at her, breathing heavily. "I only did what I had to survive, to protect them." Elara smiled faintly. "No. You did more than survive. You led. You inspired. You fought not for orders, but for what is right. That is something your empire cannot understand." Kale nodded, looking out at the horizon. Smoke still rose from distant cities, but fires burned less fiercely than before. Humans were fighting back. For the first time, they were no longer powerless. Suddenly, a shadow moved in the sky above them. Kale tensed. Another Zarion scout? A hunter? Elora placed a hand on his shoulder. They are coming. But you are ready. From the clouds, a massive ship descended. Its hull was scarred from previous battles. Kale raised his weapon, signaling Mira and the survivors to prepare. The drones hovered, shields activated, and the larger machines powered up, ready to defend. The ship landed outside the valley. Doors opened, and figures emerged, Zarion soldiers, elite hunters, and the commander Kale had thought destroyed. His heart tightened. The final battle was about to begin. Kale stepped forward, his plasma rifle in hand. We hold this ground, he said. For humanity. For life. Mira nodded, standing beside him, her machine ready. The children were moved to safety behind the protective drones, and the wounded man took his position with the defensive systems. The Zarion commander advanced, its armor glowing with deadly energy. Kale fired, dodging blasts, guiding Mira and the drones to surround it. The fight was brutal. Sparks flew, metal clashed, and the valley shook with the sound of battle. Kale remembered Elora's words, fight with purpose, not anger. He focused on protecting the humans, coordinating the drones and machines like a conductor guiding an orchestra. Myra's machine struck the commander, forcing it back, while Kale fired precise shots that disrupted its armor. The hunter roared, advancing again, faster than any human or drone could react. Kale pushed forward, dodging energy blasts, until he saw an opening. He directed all the drones to converge, creating a concentrated energy pulse. Mira fired her machine simultaneously. The combined attack hit the commander, throwing it backward over the cliff. Silence fell. The surviving Zarion soldiers froze, confused and leaderless. The humans watched in awe as Kale lowered his weapon, chest heaving. The commander was gone, and the fleet above retreated once more. Kale turned to Mira and the survivors. It's over for now, he said. Elora stepped forward. This is not the end, Kale. The Empire will return, but they will remember today. Humanity has shown courage, and that is a power they cannot destroy. The survivors smiled, exhausted but relieved. The children hugged their mothers, the wounded man grinned weakly, and Mira stood beside Kale, proud and strong. For the first time, Kale felt that he belonged, not to the Empire, but to these people, to the planet he had once been sent to destroy. Kale looked out over the valley. Fires still burned, but hope glimmered among the ruins. Earth was wounded, but alive. And Kale knew that as long as humans had courage, and he stood with them, they could survive anything. The wind carried a soft whisper through the mountains, as if the planet itself acknowledged the bravery of those who fought. Kale placed a hand on Myra's shoulder. We've survived the nightmare, he said. Now we rebuild, and prepare. Elora's voice echoed softly behind them. Remember this day, Kale. The choices you make will shape the future, not just for humanity, but for the galaxy. Courage is more powerful than any weapon. Never forget that. Kale nodded, looking at the rising sun. For the first time, he was not a soldier following orders. He was a guardian of life. He was a protector of Earth. And he would stand ready, whatever the Empire sent next. The survivors began moving down the mountainside, their spirits lifted, their hearts strong. Kale watched them go, knowing that the war was far from over, but Earth had a chance. And that chance was worth everything. Above, the clouds parted, and the first clear light of day touched the mountains and valleys. The world was scarred, but alive. And Kale, once an alien soldier, had become a hero not through destruction, but through courage, choice, and the will to protect. The Zarion Empire would return, but so would humanity's courage. And for Kale, that was enough, for now.